Marketer of the Day, number 504. Become debt-free, retire early, snowball your way out of debt using smart financial strategies, and build a blog following with Deacon Hayes. Hey everyone, we're so glad that you're listening to us today. We're talking with Deacon Hayes, and Deacon is the founder of wellkeptwallet.com, which is a personal finance site dedicated to helping people make money, save money, and pay off debt. And he's been a contributor for US News and World Report, Investopedia, Clark Howard, and more. So Deacon Hayes, glad to be talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Robert.
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of interesting stuff about what you have going on with your website here. Like, there's the whole thing of like a lot of people out there. They've created blogs. They want to make money from them. A lot of people don't. It seems like you've made it, and then you've had all this great press coverage, and above all that, you got yourself and your family out of debt, and you're able to use your own story to help others. So I mean, sounds like you have a lot of great stuff going on.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a fun journey for sure.
Well, cool. And so how did this journey start? I mean, like you have all this stuff in place now, but what began all of this?
So yeah, when my wife and I first got married, that's when it all started, because we decided, okay, we're going to, move in together. We're going to start a life together. Well, we need to figure out our finances together. And so we combined our finances and realized that we had $52,000 in debt outside of mortgage debt. And for us, that was a lot of money, right? So we realized we're in our mid-20s and we got to figure out a plan to pay this off so that we're not straddled with debt our entire lives. And so I'm a big fan of learning from other successful people. So I did a lot of reading, Howard Dayton, Dave Ramsey, Jim Cramer, Warren Buffett, you name it, Benjamin Graham. I was reading everything I could about personal finance. And then, realized actually at the end of the day, it was very simple. We just needed to increase our income, decrease our expenses, and just put every extra penny towards getting our debt gone. And so we actually paid off that 52 grand in 18 months, which was phenomenal. And that kind of started the journey to where we are today.
Super cool. And so that it sounds like with a lot of this like financial advice, it seems like, because I'm kind of curious as well. Like I go and I do a bunch of reading here and there, expecting to discover some secret mathematical formula, and it seems like when you actually look at what works, it's just like a mindset thing, right? It's like it doesn't have to be some crazy calculations. It's just put more in than you take out, and if you have all this debt, then ship it away and get it down and rethink some of your decisions and be smarter about a lot of things where maybe you didn't notice or were careless in the past. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that a lot of this getting out of debt strategy is mostly mindset. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And, I think the reading just reinforced it. It's kind of like, hey, you see all these successful people and they say, avoid debt. If you have debt, pay it off at all possible. Figure out ways to increase your income, figure out ways to decrease your expenses. You're like, okay, yeah, that all makes sense. I've known that before, but now I believe it because I'm hearing it from credible sources, right? And so that really kind of gave us, the motivation to say, okay, let's do this.
Super cool. And I agree completely. And I think that for me, I think the turning point was around maybe age 22, 23. And up until that point, I was the stereotypical teenager, high school student, college student. If I saw some piece of advice, I'd think, oh, I heard of that. I've heard about having a budget. I've heard about decreasing costs here and there. And because I told myself I'd heard about that, I'd ignore it. But then now that I'm a little older and wiser, if I'm hearing something, especially if it's something simple and it's something I've heard over and over again, nowadays I stop and I say, okay, before I ignored it because of the simpleness and because of the repeat factor there, but because I'm hearing it over and over again, it's like, okay, maybe I should actually be paying attention to this, because if I'm hearing it again and again and I'm not implementing, that's way different than if I'm already doing great and brushing it off. And so that right there is something simple to explain, but I think a lot of people, they fall into that trap of, oh, I heard about that, I'm going to totally disregard that. So you did a lot of reading for this credible sources to really drive the point home. And so did you, and you were talking about like, success habits of rich people and things like that. Did you replace TV watching and other time wasters or things like that with the reading?
What's interesting? I don't really know if we had a lot of TV watching back then, because one of the things we did to pay off debt was we canceled our cable, and we did have a Netflix, account, and they would send you DVDs in the mail, and maybe they still do that, but yeah, so we did have some entertainment that we did, but I think our focus was we had this goal of paying off the debt, And so we were trying to figure out every extra way to make money, and so I actually got a second job delivering pizzas at night. So there wasn't as much time to just kind of sit around. Really was hustling to pay it off fast.
Super cool. So you put your ego aside. You said we're gonna really be deliberate about this, and not keep spending, but instead get a second job, knowing that it's temporary, knowing that maybe we're pushing ourselves a little harder than an average, so that way we can do a lot of stuff now, so that way we can pay this down to get the rewards later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then so you kind of did the Dave Ramsey success story thing where the couple, like the married couple, say we paid off all this debt in X amount of time. And so how did you get from there to the blog? Was the blog happening simultaneously, or was this like catching on with friends and family? You said we had to explain it. Like, how did you get from doing it yourselves to blogging about it?
Yeah, so it was really right when we started trying to pay off our debt. I decided, hey, let's start this blog to kind of track our progress, to help other people, and to be able to kind of share tips that we learned as we were paying off our debt. And so really we talked about, making money, saving money, and paying off debt. And it was really just a way to get the message out there, not really thinking, hey, this is going to be a business someday, just thinking this is a really good way to reach friends and family, and then maybe some, strangers, that might read it. And then it kind of catapulted from there.
I like that a lot. And so by using the blog to track your progress or share tips, it sounds like it was as much for both of you as a reference and to see how far you've come. It's as helpful to you as it is for those other people who were getting the advice from you. So it sounds like it wasn't really like an extra chore. It wasn't extra time. It was just documenting the things that you were doing.
Yeah, and it was kind of an outlet, right? I mean, I felt like, hey, there's all this exciting stuff going on, like, paying off a car or paying off a credit card or, whatever it might be. And then I wanted to be able to share it. So yeah, it didn't feel like a chore. It definitely felt like, hey, this is an outlet for me.
Super cool. And so what were some of those big milestones? You mentioned like paying off the car. Like, how did you go from 52K in debt to like what were like the stepping stones there?
Yeah, so well, starting with the car, it was actually upside down, and so what we decided was it was a brand new car that I could drive, a much older, reliable car for $2,500, and then have this new car that we're gonna have a car payment on forever. So I ended up figuring out how to come up with an extra $1,000 to sell the upside down car. My wife had a car that was worth $5,000, so we took that, sold it, and bought two cars with that $5,000. So we went from having this, $400 a month expense with this brand new car to getting rid of that altogether and getting two reliable cars, which helped us snowball it even faster. Then, talking about Snowball, we use the debt snowball method by Dave Ramsey because I'm very much give me some practical tips and I'll do it and I'll make it happen. So we listed our debt smallest to largest and paid off the smallest debt with all of our extra cash, and then rolled that extra money into the next debt. And then once that's paid off, into the next debt until it was all gone. So, it really was, doing the debt snowball, getting rid of the upside down car, and then figuring out every extra way to get extra money to get it paid off that quickly.
So out of those extra ways to make money, does anything really major or fun or interesting come to mind?
I used to do a lot of garage sale arbitrage. So like on the weekends during the day or the morning, I'd go drive around some yard sales in the neighborhood, and I'd take my phone and I'd scan barcodes on products, typically like electronics, and I'd see what they're selling for on Amazon. So, it could be like a textbook, and the textbook was, they're asking $1 for it and it's selling for $35 on Amazon, right? And so I would do that, and I could make, 100, $200 in a weekend just by finding those type of products at a low cost, and then, reselling them online.
Awesome. And that sounds like not only is that a great way to make money, but that seems kind of fun, like driving around different garage sales, checking out this or that, going on these weekend adventures.
Yeah, it can be. There was actually a podcast that I found, which is funny because I forget what it was, but it was like something like Garage Sale Treasures. And it was kind of cool because you kind of see like what other stuff has value, what other people are finding. So yeah, in that moment, it definitely was fun. It was kind of like, hey, how much money can I make this weekend,
Yeah. So, I mean, did you have any resistance towards like, was there a limit towards, I guess, how do I even say it? Like, was there things that you just couldn't bring yourself to do? Like you humbled yourself a little bit by selling the cars, by getting the job delivering pizzas, by doing the garage selling. Did it ever get to the point where you're like, okay, I won't go that far. I won't do that crazy thing to make the money.
I don't think there was anything crazy. I will say, we definitely had a couple opportunities. Like we had friends getting married out of the country, and we're like, oh man, that's just so expensive. The plane tickets are like 3 grand a piece, or combined, and then you have the hotel, all that stuff. And we're like, hey, we got all this, that we don't have cash to pay for that stuff. So there was some stuff that we had to say no to because we just realized we didn't have the resources to do it. But we knew that saying no now meant that we could say yes later in life.
Right. I love that concept of the stereotypical, maybe not stereotypical, but a lot of people out there who are not good with their money have that tendency to spend the money they don't have to impress people they don't like. And it's like, well, who you're really showing off for? And then the two of you kind of did the opposite. You said, I don't care if I'm driving a beater car. I don't care if someone judges me for delivering pizzas. We're getting out of debt. We're saving all this money. So on the outside we look poor, but on the inside we're making all this money, versus a lot of people out there on the outside they look rich, on the inside they're poor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. So you did all these different things: the second job, the garage selling, saying no to things that weren't where that were a stretch, or things that were just like too far out of your range, things that would distract you from your goals. And so at this point, how was when you were like getting close or at the point where you're out of debt? How far along in your journey were you? How much time here has passed, and how's the blog doing?
Well, so the blog was just kind of humming along. There was no real growth to it, right? I guess it would just say it was, slow and steady. And as far as actually stopped working pizza delivery right at the tail end because I got another job which paid more, and I was like, well, I don't need to have two jobs because this job pays more than both of them. So there were things that were just kind of moving in the right direction, and so it was an exciting time. But it's funny, when we paid off the debt, we didn't really feel it, right? It was kind of like, well, we're used to making these really large payments, whether it was credit cards, student loans, car payment. And so it wasn't until a few months of not making those payments where the bank account started getting bigger, and you're like, oh wow, this is actually effective, and we're reaping the rewards.
That's super interesting. Yeah, and it seems like with that whole like Dave Ramsey strategy, it's like that people's kind of lack of planning got them to that point where they only can put forth so much energy, and all the payments is spread across the house and the credit card bills, and then the interest eats up all these things. But by changing our thinking, by getting the small stuff paid off, and then debt snowball up to everything else, then it's like now it's maybe like a slight more bit of money coming in, a slight extra effort, but now it's focused in one place, and without all those extra little payments, I mean, now it just kind of grows and grows. I mean, that's really an awesome place that both of you are at. And so you said that the blog was consistent, the blog was humming along, and then how did you get from the blog to, like, I saw that you and your wife have done like media appearances and things like that. So has the blog grown since getting to that finish line?
Yeah, so we get close to 1 million. Oh, actually, we get over 1 million page views a month now. We literally just hit that threshold, but it definitely, for like 5 or 6 years, didn't do anything. It just kind of sat there. But we did get some opportunities, like you mentioned, to be like on Fox News in New York City, and to be featured in like the U.S. News and World Report and CNN Money and that kind of stuff. And that really helped us get exposure and say like, hey, here's an average couple that paid off an average amount of debt in a short period of time. And people really resonated with that. So we got a lot of, I don't know if you call them fans or readers, and people just came along, and then started getting a lot of organic traffic from Google and Facebook. Not so much anymore Facebook, but we definitely, kind of over the years have exponentially increased when it comes to our reach.
Super cool. And that's a common story that I hear about people who have these sorts of blogs, especially the saving money, getting out of debt kind of blogs, is that it seems like there are those first initial years where it's barely anything, barely any traffic, but then after they get to the point where they've reached that threshold of built up enough fans for it to reach critical mass, gotten enough content out there where the organic traffic is consistent. It seems like I hear the story over and over again that the first few years they think about giving up. A lot of similar blogs give up in those first few years, but they get through it, they get to that point where it just begins growing and exploding on its own. And so I'm curious with like the Fox News appearances and things like that. Is that something that you and the wife did deliberately? Like, did you go out and find those appearances, or did they find you from your website?
No, I think the first one actually was the U.S. News and World Report, which is like a national publication online, and so it was kind of funny. I guess it's not national, but it's just online. And but that had a large reach, and I think because of that, a producer from the Fox and Friends show had reached out to us. So I think it was just a random, this writer for the U.S. News found us, and then someone found the U.S. News article, and then someone watched the Fox News thing, right, and then just kind of had that kind of cascading effect.
Cool. A snowball effect in a different way. That
right.
One small media appearance leads to a bigger one, leads to a bigger one. It grows from there. And so when you and the wife had those first few media appearances, were you guys nervous? Were you like not sure what to say or practicing, or did you just go in and wing it and it was great?
Oh yeah, for sure nervous. And I remember so it's in New York City, we're in Arizona, so we had to fly out there. And when we got there, I think we got there late at night, and we had to get there early in the morning. So we're at the studio at like 6 a.m. New York time, but it's like 3 a.m. Arizona time, right? So we're foggy. We're like, barely got any sleep, and we're on national TV, which you've never done before, And so we're like, I just hope I stay awake and I don't mess this up. And so it was definitely one of those things where I had no idea what I was doing, but they're really good at coaching people. Like the lady that was interviewing us, I think her name was Anna, was super nice, and she was like, "Hey, this is what we're going to talk about, and this is, where are you from? And like, how'd you guys meet?" And so it was very conversational and made us at ease. I don't know if all national stuff is like that, but I felt like, even though we didn't know what we were doing, they definitely helped us through the process.
That's great. That's really reassuring. And whenever I'm nervous about a lot of things in general, I think to myself that the DMV wants you to get your driver's license, right? Like it's easy to say, oh, well, I need to learn to drive. There's a stupid driver's test, all these stupid rules I need to learn. They're going to try to trip me up. And then you think about it and you're like, well, every state in the US, they want to get those driver's licenses pumped out. Millions of people have already learned to drive, so it's in their best interest to move you along. Even though this new thing might be difficult just because it's unfamiliar to you, they want it to be smoothly. And that's kind of what I'm hearing when you're talking about how the news reporter prepared both of you and loosened things up and asked questions and figured out where to go in order to make the interview as smooth as possible, because that's their goal, right? It's not their goal to trip you up or play gotcha. You're not a politician. They want the conversation to go well. So that seems like that took a lot of the nervousness, the uncertainty about it. Just knowing that they want to have a show without any weird hangups.
Oh, for sure.
Well, cool. And then so you got out of debt. You documented your story, got a lot of traffic and attention on the blog, and so. What's come of that? Like, are you guys, do you guys have a book, a podcast, a course, coaching program, anything like that to further take advantage of this extra traffic?
Yeah, so I've created a lot of things over the years. The product or the thing that I did recently was I wrote a book called You Can Retire Early. And so the idea was really to kind of help people figure out how to achieve financial freedom. It's less about retiring early and more about having the financial independence, meaning that you have enough money to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And so wrote that last fall and just launched it. And I also have a course called Debt Free in 18 Months that we're giving away for free for people that buy it. But it's really, through the process, I tried, a lot of different things, whether it was the course, the book, doing coaching. And really what I found, at least for the blog, that does the best for us is affiliate marketing. And so we have all these brands that we work with that will not only do affiliate relations, but they'll do sponsored content. So they'll pay for us to write articles on their behalf and disclose them, of course. But yeah, so we really have most of our revenue now is from affiliate marketing.
I love it. So what it sounds like happened is now that once the blog traffic got built up, then you tried these different avenues, figured out what people wanted, what people were buying, what worked for you, and then you settled on these different things. And I also imagine that, I imagine that all this extra traffic that you've now built the site up to makes things a lot easier, right? I mean, you launch a book, easy to get that book launched or at least seeded with that list or that traffic you built. And with affiliate stuff, I mean, I'm sure it's easier to get that affiliate commission with extra traffic. And then, but most importantly, that sponsored content, because you always hear about these bloggers that they want to get that, right? They want to just be able to write a blog post and get paid, or they want people to send in free stuff and then they record it on their YouTube channel and things like that. But I imagine that you wouldn't have been able to get that without the traffic numbers to show. Is that correct, or is that off base?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, they definitely look for not only traffic, but they'll look at your social reach, like how many people follow you on different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And so, yeah, so getting the traffic up, getting the social numbers up definitely helped us. Now we get approached by brands, so we don't actually pitch them; they pitch us.
Super cool. And the I guess the logic that I'm hearing, both in the way that you guys paid off your debt and the way that you built this business now, is that a lot of people maybe want to get everything all at once, and they say, oh, I could do this and this and this. But maybe if you say, well, here are my goals and here's what I'm going to do, then I can do this and this and this thing. And now I have the freedom to do that, or I have the money for that, or I have this asset like the website and the traffic. And then once I get to point A, then I have these extra opportunities to get me along to point B. But a lot of people, they want to just be able to buy the fancy car or buy the fancy house, and it's like, well, maybe pay off the debt first. Or a lot of people with their websites, they want to get those sponsored posts, but it's like, well, get your traffic up. It's not just all going to happen because you want it, and it's not all going to happen all at once. You have to maybe step your way up to it.
Yeah, for sure, and figure out which method you want to do. So for us originally, it was organic traffic, getting traffic from Google, and then it was Facebook traffic. No, actually, it was Pinterest traffic after that, and then that kind of died down. Then it was Facebook traffic. So it was kind of figuring out like, what's the one thing I can focus on right now and get the maximum result, and then once that's kind of moving along, then kind of go to the next thing and the next thing.
I love it. So you figured out a path that made it work, and not in the way that people mess up, where it's not like you started a bunch of stuff and did it halfway and finished it. You said, I'm going to figure out Pinterest and get it dialed in before moving on to something else, but knowing that you might have to be flexible, you might have to try different things in order to see it through. And same thing with Facebook, same thing with organic traffic. So, I mean, I love your thought process, your curiosity that kind of gets you to read what you need to read to get the information, or get the advice, or get the reminder, these sorts of things, and then just kind of debug and troubleshoot the system and get these little problems solved, so that way you can get the even bigger problem solved. So this is all really great. And so, now that you and the wife have been through this whole journey of paying off the debt, having the website, now that you're in the mode of helping people, do you see like a huge mistake people are making these days with their money or their mindset or anything like that? Any like number one mistake you just keep seeing over and over again?
I'd say using debt as a way of life, right? Like, I think when we got married, it's just like, hey, we want to go on a honeymoon, so let's put it on a credit card. We'll pay it off later. It's like, hey, my boss says I need a nice, reliable car. Like, I need to go out and buy a brand new one. It's really just having that mindset of saying, no, you can actually get to and from work and have a nice looking car for less than $5,000. You don't need to finance one. Or, well, if you can't afford to go on a honeymoon right now, then maybe you just do a staycation at a very nice resort in your town, for $500, like, until you can afford something later. So it's really kind of just having that mindset shift of saying, hey, I got to work within the resources that I have. And I think until people make that choice, they're going to continue to use that as a way of life. But once they make that choice, it is probably the most liberating thing, because you're like, gosh, I have the resources to do what I want when I want, but you just got to plan for it.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to be, and a great mindset to have in order to get those things you want, to be a little more strategic, a little smarter about it than the average person. So I'm really curious about what kind of things you have going on. We mentioned there's that website, wellkeptwallet.com. Is that the only place to go, or are there other places people should go to check you and the wife out?
So wellkeptwallet.com is the best place to go. In fact, we do have that giveaway I was telling you, is wellkeptwallet.com/retire, if they want to find out more about the book and our course and that kind of stuff. But that would definitely be the best place to go.
All right, super great. So wellkeptwallet.com/retire to find out about the book and the course. And then if you're curious about personal finance advice in general, check out the front page, wellkeptwallet.com. And thanks so much, Deacon, for stopping by and sharing not only your kind of personal, vulnerable story of getting out of debt, but also how you double dipped in a way to build this other business and basically just rearrange things so that way you can have the life that you want. And maybe if there are things that you thought that you wanted to have like a year from now, maybe you pushed it back to 5 years, 10 years from now, and you're able to get that and more. So I think that this is a really inspiring message. I learned a bunch of stuff. I think that a lot of people listening are going to learn a lot of things too. And so I appreciate your story and I appreciate you. So thanks for coming by and sharing some of this interesting stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Have you heard of Google? How about Google Calendar, Google Drive, or Gmail? Do you struggle mastering these powerful but sometimes scary technologies? Our new book, The Checklist Mindset, makes it simple. It's the next best thing to hiring a full-time virtual assistant. Claim your copy of our book on Kindle at www.checklistmindset.com.